Resurrecting a toy line from limbo. Here's a look at the brand new Super7 SilverHawks Ultimates Mon Star Limbo Mob Kingpin. The galactic mob boss Mon Star might actually be scarier without his enhanced robotic armor, leaving no doubt that he's the fearsome foe for the SilverHawks and the inhabitants of the Limbo Galaxy. This made-to-order 7-inch fully articulated SilverHawks Ultimates figure of Mon Star features premium detail and comes with interchangeable heads and hands, a variety of other accessories including a pair of Sky Shadow figures. Mon Star has escaped the maximum security prison Penal Planet 10 twice, so don't let your chance to add Mon Star to your collection escape your grasp. Now, before we start asking the Moon Star for any powers, let's first grab the tape measure just to see how tall the brand new Mon Star is for the SilverHawks Ultimates figure line from the folks, of course, over at Super7. Mon Star, in this case, non-transformed, stands 7 3/4 of an inch tall, or the figure's about 19.5 centimeters in height. Seeing as this does mark the first SilverHawks Ultimates figure we've had looked at here on this channel, I haven't had the chance, of course, to look at the others. Those will be coming up shortly. I don't have another SilverHawks figure I can compare it to, nor do I have the original SilverHawks Mon Star from way back when. But I do have at least another Ultimate figure, one of which I'm sure you guys would want to see the comparison of. Here's what Mon Star looks like with Mumm-Ra the Ever-Living. Obviously, in a case like this, Mumm-Ra the Ever-Living is quite a lot taller than Mon Star as he is right now. But of course, when he gets the rays of the Moon Star, let's see if he actually gets to about the same height as Mumm-Ra the Ever-Living. Speaking of also Thundercats, we just recently had a look at here the toy version or LGN version of Lord Lion-O. We can bring him in as well. And at least from highest to lowest, I don't know why Lion-O is having loose legs here. From highest to lowest, you can see that Mon Star is taller than a Lion-O, but he's not as tall as Mumm-Ra. If you count everything up, Mon Star comes with 3 interchangeable heads, not to mention 2 versions of Sky Shadow. But the thing that has me the most confused is that the figure comes with, not counting the hands that he has right now in his forearms, the figure has an additionally 9 extra hands. And while some of the hands may obviously vary from the ones that he has right now, I have to sort of question it because the figure has no other accessories, no weapons that he can wield, nothing that would really justify why he would have to have so many extra hands. And while, of course, the throne is something that's sold separately from Mon Star, at the time of actually doing the review of Mon Star, I don't have the throne yet. I'm sure many of the people that have picked up a Mon Star have also picked up the throne. I haven't yet. I will those soon. I don't think I could say, well, if they got rid of at least half the hands, they could then use the plastic for the throne, because obviously the throne is still way too big. But I think that the hands probably could have been used for something other than that, not just the hands that come packaged with the figure. We'll talk obviously more about that in a moment. First, though, let's have a look at the 2 versions of Sky Shadow. Sky Shadow in sort of his more gargoyle state, his original state, you can see he does have some really cool detailing going for him. The fact that they were able to paint as something as small as his pupils is a really nice touch. The tongue, though, being the same color as the rest of his mouth, they sort of do deliver a little bit less in the way of paint there. But all the rest of the figure does look really nice. The way they painted the inside of its wings, for example. And while you may look at this and think that this is just a staction piece, let me correct you by that. The figure actually does have posability. Not only does it have ball joints in the wings, but you can also then ball joint the head. You can kind of move it up and down just a little bit. And you can also rotate it around. It's, again, a really nice look of Sky Shadow. Now, Sky Shadow in the series, Moon Star, Mon Star, actually does transform this thing. Something similar to Tallyhawk, but a little bit more sinister. He gets this version also of Sky Shadow. Unfortunately, though, with this Sky Shadow, while there was articulation at least to say with the head and at least to say with the wings, this version of Sky Shadow does, well, absolutely nothing. It's folded and compact. It doesn't have fold-out wings. It doesn't do anything really in the way of articulation. I thought maybe, if anything, you could be able to rotate the head, but you can't. I'm pretty sure when we do get ourselves the robotic version of Mon Star, we may also get ourselves another version of Sky Shadow. But I almost feel like, why wouldn't they have just delivered that in the first place and giving us this version? It kind of looks a little bit more like a cockroach when you look at it from the top. It's nicely detailed, at least from what you can see of it, but I just wish that this had a little bit of posability, something going for it, instead of just being in a almost a cocoon state. There is really no other place also when you take both of these figures to attach onto Mon Star, not the arm or anything along those lines, but I guess if you did use one of those other hands that I was talking about, you could slightly perch Sky Shadow inside the hand of Mon Star. And that's one way, of course, I suppose you could display the figure. You can't really rest it on top of the shoulders, for example. There's just not enough real estate space. Not to mention as well, Mon Star has big giant spikes sticking out as well. So we're going to move those to this side. But again, like the thing that confuses me the most is, well, say yes, the figure comes included with closed fists. And while really the figure doesn't have closed fists right now in his forearms, I could certainly justify closed fists. I'm not really one that advocates closed fists because I always think that they're the most boring of hand that come included with the figure, but at least they get them. The figure also comes included with, again, gripping hands, but he has nothing at all to grip it with. Again, the hands are nicely done. It looks as if, in this case, that they probably have used black plastic and brushed on top of it this sort of bronze brown that really does make up the majority of the figure's body. Between that, of course, the more rusted red that he has as well. Nice looking hands. I just don't have anything to have them holding right now. The figure also comes included with this version of the hand as well, which looks like it's very specifically designed for something. And yet, lo and behold, there's nothing else that comes included with the figure. But doesn't it looks like it has a purpose. This one, above all others, looks like it has a purpose. And yet, with no accessories to be found, it doesn't have a purpose, at least for right now. The figure also comes included with gestured hands. Of course, if he is transforming into Mon Star, Moon Star of Limbo, transformed, oh wait, that's Mumra. Give me the might, the muscle, the menace, that's right, the menace of Mon Star. And of course he transforms. These are good hands for that. Again, they're not that much different really than the hands that he has right now. They're just a little bit more exaggerated of a gesture, that's all. I probably will, really, when it comes to displaying this figure, in fact, use those hands. You simply just remove the hands by twisting them off the sockets of the forearms. If you're having any problems doing this, by the way, which I seem to be having right now, I changed this hand, but I haven't yet really changed this hand. I probably should have heated this also up in hot water. We're going to twist the hands and remove it from the peg. Maybe I should even just leave it for right now. Let's see if I can actually pop. This other hand was removing fine. I don't know why that other one was giving me a hang-up, but let's just plug the new hand in there. And then after this review is finished, I'm going to go and take a hot water bath. Not for me, for Mon Star here. I'm just going to remove this hand. Just to also show you that there is a difference, yeah, between the two hands. I like this hand a lot more than this hand, but they're very, very close, aren't they? The last thing that the figure comes included with, let's just get him to stand at least in the hand department. The figure also comes included with pointing hands. So you can point, for example, to yes, man. Yes, boss. Whatever you say, boss. These are great looking hands as well. But what I would have probably done away with altogether is, well, maybe not the gripping hands. I would probably have gotten rid of the fists altogether, and I would use those hands instead for any accessories. If you go back and watch the SilverHawks, he always has a master plan. The bad guys always have a master plan. Mon Star, I'm sure, probably could have had some episode-referenced accessories. Maybe all of those are going to be saved for robotic Mon Star when we eventually get that figure. The other thing that the figure does also come included with, I'm really happy to see, is he comes with 3 versions of head sculpt. Let's just go actually pick up the figure right now to show you that he has more of a neutral head sculpt, which is fine, which is good. It does have great coloring going for all of these, in fact. But then he has this one where maybe he is already summoning the powers of the Moon Star, of Limbo. I'm not going to say that again. But yeah, it does result in him, of course, shedding his skin, so to speak, and transforming into the robotic version. Even though I do like Mumra the Ever-Living's transformation, I think I actually like Mon Stars just a little bit more. There is one specific one where you actually can see his face from. I'm only describing this because he actually has several different forms of transformation. But there's one specific one where you sort of see his head from below, and as he's saying, give me the might, the muscle, he then brings his arms forward, and all of this sheds off of him. It's by far one of my favorite transformations in a cartoon series. So he does have this head sculpt, which I prefer really of the 3. This is my favorite by far. And then he does also have one other one. Let's just get the figure to stand here for a second. He has this one that has the glowing eye. So by now, the rays of the Moon Star have shone down on him, and he's just about to transform. You can see how the eye is differently glowing here from this one right here. Both of these heads are my favorite of the 3, but I think if I had the choice and somebody was twisting my rubber arm, I would probably settle on this one. This one has, again, some really stellar looking sculpt. He kind of has a lion look, really, for the mane of hair that he has. It's sculpted really well and painted equally well, too. You've got little touches of that copper color, a lot of the red additionally added to the front of the face. And again, what a fantastic, as you can see, he also does have the little center tooth there in the front of his face. Really great looking. Now, I did also take the time, I should have really done it while I was doing the head to heat the hand, but you can just pop the head off the ball joint and just put that to the side and take my favorite of the three and pop the new head back onto the ball joint. Now, I have already, like I said, preparing for this review, heated the head in hot water. In fact, I actually just heated the whole thing. I would probably even suggest using a hairdryer because you really don't want to heat these side spikes in case they start to get droopy, little lopsy-daisy. But again, once you plug that in place, you've got yourself, I don't think I've had it all the way in there. There we go. You got Mon Star with my favorite of three head sculpts. Again, just to show you, there's the more neutral expression. He's really not doing much of anything, really. It looks like he's just sitting inside his prison cell. But then there's this one, again, he's summoning the Moon Star. And then there's this one, where he's just about to transform. The head sculpt on all of them, again, fantastic. The color, the detail that they managed to put into these pieces. Being only, again, the first of the SilverHawks Ultimate figures. I did actually pick up all the first. Well, this is technically the second wave, not the first wave. Eventually, I'm sure we are going to be getting the first wave. I don't know why it was delayed and we got the second wave instead, but it's kind of actually nice to get the Mon Star first. And then, of course, we're going to look at the rest of the figures from the second wave. Detailing for the rest of the figure as we get away from his head. I know we talked so much about that. One thing I did actually want to say is while putting the head down, this one little bit of tuft of hair, you can see has already developed a stress mark. It's only by my accidental bending of this, when I was trying to put the head down, I think I may have actually put pressure against this part of the hair. And you can see there's a little bit of a stress mark right there. So just of course, be careful putting this down on the figure's body. Speaking of bodies, though, he does have, again, the color scheme that he has in the cartoon. Again, mostly he's kind of a brown-bodied figure. You can see some really nice additional airbrushing that they've added in there as well. Then we get the more rusted red that they've added to the top of his torso, which also matches that he has in his shoulders with the spikes. The spikes, if you're concerned, are softer plastic. I would not be able to do this with more brittle plastic. The spikes, of course, do get a little in the way of things when it comes to the arm articulation that we'll talk more about in a moment. He has these little tufts of fur that stick out on the sides of his forms. He's a really interesting designed character. I always thought, again, like the read-up at the beginning of this review, that Mon Star, honestly, I thought was always scarier looking like this than when he actually looked like his robotic self. He has a loincloth, so for those that love their loincloths, he does have quite a furry loincloth, tipped on the ends only by that more rusted red, actually a more lighter coloring of that rusted red. And then underneath that, if we look underneath the hood, you can see the way they've designed the body. I mean, basically just standard articulation, the same as what we've gotten with the Thundercats. But again, I really like the brown that they've used. Part of me almost thinks that this is the color of the plastic, but I think they probably would have painted the over top of black plastic because there's so much more of black than there is this more brown that they've used. Again, you got the nice color scheme. Also finding a few little traces also there on his fingertips, but overall just a neat looking figure. Spin him around so you can see him from all the back. There's the loincloth again. His bare feet have, again, articulation, but he has gnarly looking toes, equally gnarly toenails as well sticking out. Just a nice looking figure. And for the fact, the figure does also have pegals on the undersides of his feet, though unfortunately none of these Ultimate figures, Thundercats, the Simpsons that we've looked at, and now Mon Star here, none of them have an actual display stand to come include with, which I really wish that they would eventually get around to including with their figures, just more so that they could actually take the time to actually print like something like SilverHawks on the bottom of the base, or on the top of the base when you're attaching onto Mon Star's body. For the articulation here of Mon Star, now his head's going to be obviously a little bit more limited. That's an understatement, just because there's so much of his locks. It's going to really prevent a lot of the articulation here, at least from the head. You move the head up only by just, obviously, that much. You move the head down a lot more. I don't think I have the head all the way on there either. No, I don't. Just put a little bit more pressure on there. There we go. Head rotates back and forth. He does have, again, the limitations when it comes to his arms, just because he's got so much hair and he's got these spikes on the sides of his shoulders. You add those two up, you're going to get a figure that's limited articulation when it comes to his shoulders. Arms do move forward and back. He has a swivel at the bicep, single hinge only in the elbow, and the hands rotate all the way around with a hinge back and forth. Upper torso is on a very generous ball joint. The lower torso, though, what's strange about this is actually the way they've sculpted the loincloth. The abdomen area actually overlaps the loincloth, rather the opposite way around. You would almost expect like the loincloth to go over top of the abdomen, but it's actually the other way around. So the figure does have an abdomen ball joint. Figure legs do split out. You can take the legs and obviously move them forward, move them back. And they have put splits there, obviously in the loincloth, so it's not going to get in the way when it comes to moving the figure back and forth. Swivel at the top of the thigh. The figure has a single hinge only in the knee, but he has at least lower articulation in the calf, which, unfortunately, yeah, my legs on Mon Star are loose. Not as much in the thighs, but they are very visibly loose here when it comes to the lower part of his calf. I don't know why. I just literally took this figure out of the packaging like 2 hours ago. He should not already be loose in the lower legs. But the figure does have ankle articulation, and again, you can rock it back and forth. A nice looking Mon Star. Again, like, even though I really was a big fan of Mum-Ra the Ever-Living, I'm still a big fan of Mum-Ra the Ever-Living, and just again, move over Mon Star. And even though this isn't Mum-Ra's review, his review I did separately, again, you can see how, right now at least, Mum-Ra the Ever-Living is still taller than Mon Star. That, I'm sure, will change when we eventually do get ourselves the more robotic version of Mon Star, which, again, I always thought was a cool-looking design, but not as scary, at least, than Mon Star when he looks like before he asks the power of the Moon Star of Limbo. Unlike the original SilverHawks toy line that did give us a Mon Star, but it was the robotic Mon Star, we finally now have his pre-transformed state, thanks to the folks over at Corset Super7. What's funny about this set is this wave is Wave 2, not Wave 1. Wave 1, as far as I know, has been postponed for one reason or another, so they jumped ahead and gave us Wave 2. I guess they're going to have to backtrack a bit to give us eventually the Wave 1 releases. But funny enough that we are looking at Mon Star first. I guess I could technically have looked at the SilverHawks, but honestly, I was the most excited to get Mon Star. Now finally having this guy in hand, he delivers exactly what I would have wanted the original Mon Star to be, just in a better articulated figure. Like with what they've done already with the Thundercats Ultimate figures, they have of course made these more cartoon accurate. And while there maybe isn't an argument to be made about Mon Star, there certainly is an argument ongoing about the SilverHawks figures. Many people question why they couldn't have used the vac form, which we're going to talk more about the chrome finish on the other SilverHawks because they don't have them. They went more influenced by the cartoon, which I prefer myself. If you are going to be releasing like the Simpsons figures, which are cartoon accurate, if you're going to be releasing the Thundercats, which again are cartoon accurate, it would make following up to that make more sense to release the SilverHawks based on the cartoon, not on the toy line itself. What's rather funny, though, about Mon Star, though, is he comes with two versions of Sky Shadow. The original version of Mon Star, way back when, in the 80s, came also included with a version of Sky Shadow, but it was the Sky Shadow that was already the robotic bird, or whatever that thing was. It was sort of in a, I think it served as sort of a clamping accessory piece. And there was also a larger version of Sky Shadow that was about the same size as the Mirage. It was part of the deluxe vehicle set. So if you guys recognize Sky Shadow, it's because he actually got released twice. One, the smaller scale along the original Mon Star, and then one, a larger version. I wish that I had any of those toys. I was kind of more into G.I. Joes and Transformers. I kind of skipped over really SilverHawks, and I really wish I could have gotten them. Of course, now many people are saying that the SilverHawks toys that they had way back when, all the chrome finish is starting to peel and flake off the figures. So maybe when we do talk a little bit about that in the SilverHawks end of the reviews, I'm probably going to advocate more the idea that I like the idea that these things look more like their cartoon counterparts, not necessarily the toy line. Again, I can only hope that in a future wave, it makes the most sense if we already have the pre-transformed Mon Star, that we're going to get the post-transformed Mon Star, and I hope he's about the same size, even bigger, than Mum-Ra the Ever-Living that we used in the comparison of this video. What do you guys think of Mon Star? Let me know down below in the comments section. Have you picked up any of the SilverHawks Ultimate figures? And if you have, what do you guys think of this line so far? I'm really excited again to pick up the throne, because while Mon Star does look fantastic on his own, I think he's going to look that much more fantastic times 10 when eventually I get the throne and he's able to sit inside of that. Of course, summoning the powers of the Moon Star of Limbo. But what do you guys think of this figure? Again, let me know down below in the comments section, and certainly as well if you guys are interested to get any of the SilverHawks and haven't had any luck to find these in the wild. Actually will provide the link down below that will take you on over to Entertainment Earth, to which they just dropped this like it was hot over on the hot off the truck option. But if you just look up SilverHawks, or again look at the links that I provided down below, if you guys are interested to get the first or second wave, I should say second wave It's available right now over on Entertainment Earth's website. We are going to be looking at the rest of the 3 figures from the Wave 2 SilverHawks. So if that's the kind of thing you guys were looking forward to seeing here on this channel, come back. Make sure you're coming back because we will be looking at those other figures. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.